In this next conversation with the Cash Compound, we are talking about college funding. Is it that you're going to a state school this year, or did you just drop the kids off at IOU? Here we go. Welcome back. I'm J-Do.
I'm Jonah.
And we're talking about getting into college right now. Well, we're actually going to assume you're already in college, or maybe your kids are, and we're going to go straight to the horse's mouth. In this episode of our podcast, in this conversation, we're going to dive deeply into what Nelson Nash had to say about funding the college program for the kids. It's about that time. You know, Jonah, last night I was at a real estate conference in our area, and you know the one.
I do.
But nobody else does, so I thought I'd say it like that. And one of our current clients, soon-to-be clients, in the process, just dropped her daughter off at the College of Charleston last night.
Good.
Here's the question. Before we jump into the numbers, what is the mascot?
Cougar. College of Charleston Cougars.
The Carls of Cougars.
Yeah, I'm feeling pretty confident about that.
All right, very good. All right, so that's a state school in our area. We're in South Carolina, but all over the country, we're helping people with code cracking cash flow, and we are going to break it down for you in how we can actually utilize whole life insurance as a bank for college, a college plan, a college fund. You know, recently we had an episode on 529s. Jonah tried to tear them apart. I tried to give you guys a little bit of a benefit of the doubt on that one, but
yeah, they're not my favorite. Wouldn't suggest it. I think that college funding is a big topic because as you have children, so again, this idea of going to college is like a necessity in today's day and time, almost.
The
way that it's presented,
it's waning a little bit.
The way that it's presented at the moment is that everyone should deserve this opportunity to go to college, and you should go there for better opportunity. And the reality of that means is that the cost of these institutions are increasing pretty rapidly. And so what you either get into is student loan debt, right? If you go to school without financial help, and so you ask for the government for help, and so there's a staggering number of people getting out of school with these crazy student loan debt numbers. Or if you are in a family that maybe has means or can financially prepare for this, they're trying their best to help you as best as they can get through that milestone without coming out without this debt, right? It's this paradigm shift because for a lot of years in there, it was go to school and you're going to rack up 6 figures worth of debt. You're going to come out and go get the $40,000 job or $50,000 job. It doesn't add up. It doesn't allow you to pay that off very quickly. So what Nelson's got in the book is a really cool example of, well, instead of just paying for school, here's an alternative. And that's what we kind of want to talk through and walk through today. Should you just give the money to the College of Charleston because you can, and they're going to ask for it, and they're going to expect it? Or should you prepare early? Should you do something different during? Like, what should you actually do? Is there a better way? Is there a better scenario for you?
So if you want to go back to our previous episode, we had a conversation about 529s. Do not miss that. Go ahead and subscribe, click the bell for notifications, and get into that conversation with yourself and your family, because many of you are doing that, I think. A lot of folks who have younger children are participating in 529s, that qualified system, and now we're going to switch it way over and swing that pendulum over here to life insurance of all crazy vehicles. Can we utilize this, and how would we do it? So we want to remind you, get your copy, 5th edition of Our Nelson Nash is Becoming Your Own Banker. And we're going to go straight in here to page number 78. 75 is where the kind of chapter starts.
Sure.
So you can read through that, and then Jonah's gonna put on the screen here in just a few seconds
the examples.
The examples, 78. And remember, ladies and gentlemen, we're not poo-pooing education. Education is very important. School, however, might throw your kids off a little bit. And for other deep-rooted ethical and points, I want to remind you guys that when the government gets involved in anything, the price skyrockets. Think of how powerful your phone is and how much that technology actually goes down compared to what it can do because the government's not involved. But when the government is involved in school, the prices go the opposite direction. Okay.
Let's do it.
All right, Jonah, so how much does it cost to go to school? We were looking this up yesterday.
Yeah, so I looked it up in the state of South Carolina because that's where we live.
Yep.
So if you're going to a state school, they said that the state schools are going to end up costing you somewhere. I think it said, was it 15?
Up to 15, I think.
Okay.
Up to
Yeah,
15.
yeah.
We were looking at Clemson University, I think.
I'm
Or
not sure.
Was it all
I
of them?
didn't.
But
I don't
it
think I
started
typed
at
in a
maybe at
specific
11.
school.
Started maybe at 11, depending. This is not private school, so we're thinking about getting some scholarships, getting some funding, and staying in state, because we're going to have to generalize here, and we're going to use Nelson's numbers on how much does it freaking cost.
It's a little crazy to me that schools can charge more money just because you live out of state.
When the government is involved,
Yeah,
the
it's a little-
prices go the other direction.
Yeah, it's just a wild thing.
Yep. Free market means competition drives prices down. College is subsidized by the government. The government steals money from productive citizens, and then they send it to Zelensky.
That is correct. Anyway, yeah. So I think they were saying it was somewhere between 13 and 15 for an in-state school in South Carolina. Now, obviously, if you live in New York, if you live in
might be
California,
different.
if you live in Texas, you gotta assume that those states are going to be a little bit on the higher
Yeah,
side.
I don't know. Tell us.
Right?
Put it in the
and
chat.
if you live in
Let us know.
Idaho or Montana, you gotta assume
Are
those
there
states are
schools
going to
there?
be on the lower. North Dakota, they
Are there
can't be
schools?
the same price
Right.
as California,
Because
right?
it's
Let's
so
be real.
cold. Everybody's trying to get 18 and get up out of there. Football sucks and it's freezing. So
Right.
let's go down south. Okay.
But so the kind of question that we're putting on the table here this morning is, let's say that you're going to a school, and let's use some of the numbers that Nelson Nash used in his book. Let's say you're going to a school that costs $20,000 a year.
Okay.
The question of the day is, should you pay for school, or should you use a different option? Now, Nelson dives in pretty specifically and says he thinks that you should use a different option. And the different option, of course, is a dividend-paying whole life insurance policy from a mutual company, which is fun, which is what we want to take a look at. But I always like to I want to throw out there to you and to the people who are watching, like, okay, so we've got pay for school as an option.
Pay directly to school.
Pay
is what you
directly
mean.
to
Yeah,
the
yeah.
school is the
Right.
option. Of course, we've got take out student loans as an option.
Right.
That's the big option that a lot of people use today. We're now going to throw in using an infinite banking policy, dividend-paying whole life insurance as an option. But are there any other options out there that you would consider to be like, this is a valid option, or people really do this?
Yes.
And we should throw in.
One more. It has been used in our family, not by us specifically, but is actually go to the military. Because the military, the government, once again, will pay for it for you. So there are a lot of programs, and even the speaker last night, the special speaker at the RIA conference, mentioned this. Her son leaves today, as we record this in August.
There's a lot of boot
for
camp
the
starting
military.
today. I didn't know.
Is it? Yeah.
Yeah, the Coast Guard boot
Oh,
camp
yeah,
starts
maybe that's
today.
what it was. She was saying
okay.
he's going in tomorrow, so that's today now, for the purpose of being able to get his education paid for. That's a valid option for a lot of people because of the price.
Because of the price.
Yes.
If it wasn't so expensive.
Yes.
I don't
and
think-
so in our family, obviously, GI Bill has been used by several people
Yeah, if it wasn't so expensive, I don't think a lot of people would jump in like that.
because they have to jump out of planes and helicopters. And that's maybe exciting when you're 19. But, like, for me, we went to war at 18. So I was like, maybe not. Yeah. That's a whole different topic. You can ask me about that on the phone on a free consultation. Okay, so but did we cover them all? Student loans, go to the military. This is a legit thing. Pay for it out of pocket. Get scholarships. I mean, that's another thing. Get scholarships.
Yeah, scholarships is a big thing. So if your
Yeah.
child or you is great at a sport or great at there's a lot of scholarships
Grants.
these days.
Grants, sometimes.
Right, you can get some for doing chess and
Undergraduate stuff,
dancing
right?
and
You can
stuff like
barely get
that.
anything for graduate degrees, and that's how you
Right.
get into hundreds of thousands of dollars of debt, unless you go to private schools out of state. Then
Yeah.
you can get into it in undergrad.
So what we want to do is we want to say that the cost of school here is $20,000, and we're going to assume that this is a 4-year program.
Sure.
So 20, 40, 60, 80,
Yep.
right? So you're either going to pay them $80,000, which is what Nelson is kind of trying to compare against.
Right.
Or, of course, you can have some of these other options. So maybe you do get a scholarship, and it's not 80, it's 70. That's not the point of the podcast episode here today. We're going to kind of compare and contrast what happens if you just pay for school. Now, again, if you do student loans, then it's the other direction, right? It cost you 80, but by the time you pay it off, it was 200 because of the interest and whatnot.
Right. Remember that. And some of you, raise your hand out there if you are paying off student loans here and you're 30 years old. You got done with school, a.k.a. drinking, at 22. you are still paying today. Also, you realize you cannot get out of those student loans. The government created a whole category and says if we're going to give you a bunch of money for bogus educational expenses, we are not going to let you not pay us back.
Yeah, there's a couple different ways.
Unless it's an election year, then we're going to make everyone else foot the bill by forgiving loans, so the rest of the economy has to pay more for hot dogs and gas at the pump.
Yeah, there's a couple different ways that are out there right now that they're trying to do exactly that. Make it seem like, oh, this is a great deal. I think one of them, there's a new repayment program for student loans. I think it's called Repay. It's a abbreviation,
Okay.
like REPAYE, even maybe
Okay.
at the end. And
Tell me about it.
I
know
don't
this
remember what it stands for.
Sure.
They make stuff up every day in the government, and they put abbreviations to it. So I don't remember what it stands for. But I think the idea is that if you go 20 years, you have to qualify for the Repay program,
Sure.
like with low income or something. And if you're in the Repay program for 20 years, then they'll forgive some of it. A good amount. It's a good amount.
Sure.
But there's a new one that everyone's happy about.
Because the colleges can get this money. They've also, over the course of the last 30 years, we ain't even got to the numbers yet, people. Can you tell? Like, we have something to say. Over the past, since, I don't know, probably the free love movement or so in the 70s, Vietnam and things like that, they've also expanded, colleges have expanded to programs that don't make any money in the economy.
Mm-hmm.
So you can study whatever you like, and by study,
literally study underwater basket weaving.
you can study
And
whatever you like.
You
and
can
go
make
to
baskets
class.
without being underwater, so I don't know what that was going to help you with.
But it doesn't translate in the economy to making dollars or being productive, helping the economy move cash around. And if that is the case, now people can't repay loans because they have to go do things in the economy that actually move money around, like food franchises, like working in commerce and trade and warehousing and shipping, things that actually move the economy around.
Yep.
And so you're stuck not being able to make money based on the loan amount you have to return. Like, I don't make that type of money because college was so expensive.
Yep.
And I work at Target.
Right. Okay, so the what we want to put on the screen here is we want to talk through what it looks like to do a life insurance policy, an
Fund a
infinite
policy.
banking policy,
Let's
as
fund it.
opposed to going to school. So on the screen here, what I want to highlight is really just two things that we want to talk about here this morning. The first, make sure I got my stuff going on here. The first is the net premium. As you can see it there on the screen, we are trying to compare as best we can to a $20,000 a year education. So in the example that Nelson shows in the book, again, this is page 78. If you've got this at home or you want to go back and read, the story part starts on 75, and then the illustration starts on 78. What he's doing here is he's saying, hey, we're going to fund the policy out of pocket for 4 years. Now, the policy doesn't just stop taking premiums after that 4-year time period. If you are familiar with insurance, you know that you can't just say, I'll put in $1 today. Think about your car insurance for a second.
Right.
You cannot call them up and say, I will give you $5,000 today, State Farm, if you never bill me again.
And Jake will say,
no.
No deal.
No deal.
No deal, Howie.
If you have a car, if you're driving, they're going to make you pay for the insurance. This is an insurance policy. But what Nelson's doing in the book is he's funding it out of his pocket, meaning his income, his savings account, wherever the money's coming from, his job, for 4 years. And then after that 4 years, he's using some of the policy elements to fund it, which is really fun.
Interesting.
A lot of you at home have some of those options. If you've had your policy for a little bit of time, you have some of those options available to you. It's really cool. But in this example, that's exactly what's happening. So 4 years out of pocket, and then all the other years are being paid for from some of the policy attributes and some of the benefits that are happening there.
But Jonah, my 18-year-old in this instance.
Yep.
But what about their health? And how much death benefit do I need?
That's a good question, I guess. I don't think that was the point of what we were talking about so far. We've been, I think, 15
true or
minutes
false,
into
that's
this
what
episode.
everyone asks us.
They do ask the question.
Every single time.
They do ask the question. So let me help out for
Yeah.
those of you who are thinking that at home. The purpose and point of an infinite banking policy is the access and use of cash value. So I know that we said life insurance.
Yeah.
When we talk about what an infinite banking policy is, please understand that that is a secondary, tertiary, way down at the bottom benefit. That's not the first thing that should be in your mind. If you are truly concerned about a death benefit, then you should go buy traditional life insurance. That is not what infinite banking is designed for primarily. It's there, but not designed for primarily. In fact, I didn't even put in our screenshot we just showed the death benefit on the screen. It was blocked out.
But there is a death benefit,
There is one.
and my kid does have to qualify?
Sure.
Okay. I just wanted to bring it up.
But let's talk about cash.
Let's talk about cash. Right. Okay.
Cool. So where it gets fun is, well, let me first ask you, let's highlight the net cash value as soon as we can and see it here, because this is a question that I get all the time. They say, well, hold on. It took me 4 years, I'll highlight that there, to put in my $80,000. And at the same time, my net cash value after 4 years sat at $77,205.
Uh-oh, we didn't break even.
We didn't break even. And a lot of people ask that question. If they get to see some values and look at some numbers, that's one of the questions that I'm going to get more often than not. Hold on. I put in 80 and I can only have 77. I can only use 77. 80 and 77 are not equal. This is a terrible deal. I lost money. What do you say to those people?
Oh, I can say so many things. First off, ladies and gentlemen, in what we use here to demonstrate and help people understand what's going on is the $80,000 is still getting its guarantees. The $77,000 of liquidity in Nelson's example is not your money. You now get to use OPM. The insurance company is providing a death benefit that we're not focusing on. $77,000 of that death benefit is net now. Net now. You can use it to go to school while your dollars are still earning. And that's one of the main important things that we can help you understand. Secondarily, is you could have used, starting in year one, Jonah, how much is cash value ready to go net now in year one that we can pay for books and tuition?
$13,203 in this example.
So ladies and gentlemen, remember here, if you're worried about the break-even point and you look at too many other conversations on the internet, you forgot that we could bank with 13 grand starting year one. We are paying for books, computers, we're buying new comforters because the one that they had from being 12 years old when we dropped them off last week was gross. So mom went and bought them a new one, didn't they?
Yep.
You realize they don't have an iron.
Nope.
They're not going to use it, but you're still going to buy them one.
TV.
Right.
For
That
the
new
dorm
TV,
room.
right?
Yep.
Because their TV
You
ain't
gotta
going to
go
cut
get
it.
stuff.
$13,000 is available to utilize right away. Remember, banking is a verb, and we can start using it way before year four. And if we do, things get really good. Nelson shows us that.
Yeah, what I like to say to folks who ask that question is that I kind of like to be nice, but it's truthfully, in my opinion, you missed it. If you say I put in 80, I can only have 77, you missed it. You missed it. It's because, like you mentioned, your 80's still there, and then you can spend the insurance companies, other people's money, OPM, 77. You've got your 80, now you're spending their 77. The obverse of that, right? In Nelson's example, what he's trying to point out in the book is that you gave 80 to the University of Texas. You gave it to them, which means you have zero. And what we are saying, even after 4 years of the example, and obviously this is whole life insurance. It lasts for a lot longer than 4 years. It lasts for a lot longer than just college, as long as the insured person still,
as long
around
as your
and
kid
kicking.
didn't drink so much,
There you go.
get hazed, and they didn't last longer than 4 years.
There you go. But the policy lasts for your whole life. You can do so much more with the money, one. And secondly, you've got to understand that if you gave the University of Michigan $80,000, you're at zero. In our example, 4 years go by, you gave the insurance company $80,000, and they gave you back 77 of their money that you could spend. That is not equivalent. It's not close. That's way better than just paying for it. It's way better than going into debt for 10 or 20 or 30 or 40 years trying to get this stuff off. That's what happens. Where it gets really, really fun is looking at the net cash value starting after school's finished, right?
Okay.
That's where it gets
Yes.
really fun.
All right.
Now, in the example that we've got on the screen, we should mention there's a highlighted black column of cash value. The reason that that's there is because in the book, the example that Nelson's giving is using some of the cash to purchase a vehicle. That's the example that Nelson gives in the book. We can talk about that if you like to, but primarily that's we were going to talk about something else, I think.
Yeah. Well, the thing.
But I want you guys to see that and know that. So you're like, hold on a second. Why does the cash go from 77 to 65?
Yeah, so you do need to dive in and make sure you're paying attention, blow up or stop the transmission that you're looking at, wherever it is, or get a visual if you go to YouTube at the Cash Compound. So you can understand that this policy is going to be able to be used in perpetuity of this person's life for whatever. So while on campus, they're using campus transportation, or you bought them a Vespa when they were 16. But after school, they need a vehicle. And we're going to still be able to utilize this rather than having the money have gone to zero. What's interesting about the way Nelson set this up, I'm not in Nelson's mind, I never had the privilege of meeting him, is that we're talking about school and then he moves to something else. He moves to automobiles and we're like, wait, what just happened? And the thing is, I think that he is, throughout the rest of the book, you have to look at it contextually, he's helping you understand lots of options, and he's utilizing different features of the policy to pull off whatever your goal might be.
Yeah.
So if you miss that by looking at our snapshot, you're probably going to miss a lot.
Yeah, I think that's one of the coolest parts of infinite banking. The first word, the infinite ability of it, right? If your child or you go to school in New York, you go to the University of New York, you go to Juilliard, you go to wherever, and you don't need the vehicle,
FAMU,
right? You don't need the car, then guess what? Don't get one.
Right. So
Just,
the
you know
money
what I
doesn't
mean?
know what it's being spent on.
Right.
So you can do whatever you want with this. Also, if we go back to the premium side of the column here.
I love it.
Okay, we go to that side, Jonah. Remind us here that he's actually utilizing a feature we don't highlight much, but is very important for policy holders, I think, to understand. Lots of people who are probably watching here today have not started with this, but lots of people do have policies and they don't understand what feature is being utilized because Nelson stops coming out of pocket with 20 grand after 4 years. What's going on?
Yeah, so again, we highlighted that just a little. We touched it. Let's go in a little more deeper. After 4 years, he paid for this policy out of his pocket, out of his income, out of his savings account, out of his job, whatever you want to describe it, that's what he did. After 4 years, the policy was still being paid, but he wasn't doing it.
Interesting.
The policy was paying for itself, if you'd like. What they call this is premium offset. And what's happening in this particular example is Nelson was using the dividends provided from the insurance company each and every year to pay for the policy premium itself.
So it's paying it down. Now, many of you actually out there who are familiar with life insurance, just familiar over the course of your lifetime, know about this feature. But it wasn't from us or Nelson necessarily. It's because everyone who ever tried to sell you on life insurance mentioned that feature. They actually mentioned it. So a lot of times we separate and think these things are galaxies away. Well, hold on. We can go right back to what you already knew. Dividends offset the premium. Dividends are return of premium from the insurance company because they overcharged you. Now, what does that mean? Is that a bad thing? Actually, no. It's because the insurance company required premiums to pay out claims. That's what they do. They preserve capital so they can pay out claims, and not enough people died, not enough buildings burned down, not enough cars crashed. Therefore, they had more money or profits, and they let you be a partner in those profits.
Yeah.
They called them dividends.
One of our favorite insurance companies had about $32 million designated as dividends this last year.
So
alone.
praise God that they actually allowed us to participate in their profits.
And
they don't
send
have
me them
traditional
checks, Bill.
shareholders. They don't have them. So they're going to let mutual companies, they're going to let whole life people get a piece of the profits. And they say, we'll make everything bigger and we'll promise you more for sticking with us. Because we are good at making sure that we can always pay out claims. We never underestimate. I was on a TikTok live recently. Follow us there at the Cash Compound. And folks were saying how bad this was. They overcharged you. And I'm saying, what if they undercharged you?
Yeah.
They wouldn't have payouts ready.
Yeah.
in whole life, we get to partner with them. So
it's just so interesting because if you get it, you get it, and if you don't, you don't. That's the reality.
So maybe we
of
should
it.
stop trying so hard.
Well,
if you get it, you get it.
I want everyone who's listening and watching today to get it. What we are doing is we are purchasing a life insurance policy for the living or while we're alive benefit of the policy. Now, you've got to design it appropriately to be able to do a lot of the things that we talk about on our channel and in these videos. But if you do, you've got access to cash, whether it's for college education, whether it's for vehicles, whether it's for houses, whether it's for vacations. It doesn't matter because cash is cash and it doesn't know what it's being spent on. Not only that, you have a guaranteed contract that you will have more and more cash over the course of your lifetime. And it's all backed by the fact that life insurance has guaranteed payouts, which is why all of this is possible. It makes it really, really cool. So a lot of times people, when they're trying to understand, they say things like, no, you can't, it's too expensive. And I'm going, too expensive? One, you get to choose what the premium is that you put in. You get to choose the price.
Right.
How can you say something's too expensive and you get to choose the price?
That's because you have to, when they say that, Jonah, we have to remember it's something we don't say here often, but we have some great colleagues out there in the IBC space that do. Compared to what? That's what it is. And you've got to realize when you compare two things on price, you then have to talk about what the features are. The price is completely different between a Ford and a Ferrari, but then you have to talk about what the features are. Yep. If you don't talk about the features, I would generally agree Ferraris are expensive, but what is the difference? What do they do? Life insurance and whole life insurance and guaranteed whole life insurance, or permanent insurance, I'm saying, life insurance and then permanent insurance and then whole life insurance has guarantees on it. The other ones don't. If you do not live long enough, or you live too long, or if you want to utilize cash and borrow against it, if you decide to use the features that go along with a permanent contract, then there is no comparison. They are way different vehicles. So what Nelson is going to show you in here that we're not getting into, a couple of things, ladies and gents. Let's make sure you understand that the premiums are going throughout this person's life until age 65. They're probably not going to be in college that long. There is a death benefit, even though you don't see it on our screen when we show it. Take a look here. Also, realize that what they're doing is, in this example, Nelson is going to also show you that the repayments in the banking mindset, the repayments in the banking mindset of this person are paying premiums, along with the dividend election that we mentioned. So it's offsetting those premiums. All those things are happening. The point is it's versatile. You're not probably going to be able to grasp all of it the first or second time you take a look at this. And that's why we wanted to have this podcast episode to pull this out, especially around the time that everybody's going back to school. I know you're home crying right now because of two things. Baby is gone, and two, you didn't save enough money. So let's get in a conversation where you can thwart this for kid 2, kid 3, kid 4, maybe the grandkids, and get policies started on them where it's going to grow and cash flow, guaranteed income tax-free for the rest of their whole life. It's going to make tailgating a whole lot more fun over the course of this semester.
I love it. Before we go, let's give a quick shout out to our fan follow of the week. And that is Jesus Medina. Jesus is following us over on YouTube, so I believe that makes him a subscriber.
Let's go.
And we really appreciate that. If you are watching this video, please leave us a comment or shoot a question underneath one of our videos, and we'll come back to it and make sure we answer it for you. If we haven't chatted with you just yet, Jesus, or anyone else that's watching or listening to our podcast, we'd love to. We do free cash consultations. What that means to you is that we will get on the phone with you. We will talk to you. We will answer your questions. We will give you some of the ins and outs of infinite banking that help you understand it a little bit better. We are offering policy reviews lately, right? If you've already got an existing life insurance policy and you're not sure if it can work for infinite banking, we'll be happy to look at it for you. All of those things are completely complimentary. They're free. We want to chat with you. So if that's you, just click the link in the bio, the link in the description, the link under whatever video you're watching, and you can find a link to that cash consultation calendar.
You are now tuned to the banking bros. Said we couldn't make it, drink or settle, this the life we chose. Gave a lot of game, we never got a lot of things. Bow your head and say the prayer, we taught you how to be the bank.
If you enjoyed this episode of the Cash Compound Podcast, we encourage you to subscribe and follow along. Our coaches have been practicing this process personally for at least 2 years. Every single one of them. They have multiple policies, and we'd love to walk and talk you through how you can crack the code to cash flow. Chat soon.